is only about 1.5 hours by flight from Tokyo. Visiting there during the winter, you'll be able to feel the true merits of Sapporo as the winter wonderland. It was snowing quite heavily when I arrived. I strongly recommend getting some winter clothes and snow boots. This is the new Chitose Airport, really busy. It's the 5th busiest airport in Japan and has a ton of places to eat, which I'll show you later. They were showcasing some of the authentic Hokkaido milk. As you know, Hokkaido is known for their amazing quality milk, supplying 50% of the Japanese milk market. All possible because of its cool climate and the wide open pasture for the cows. After about an hour of bus ride, we arrived first at the Nijo market, which is Sapporo's biggest fish market, kind of like the Tsukiji of Tokyo. They sell fresh seafood and dried seafood. You can see their famous hair crabs. They had a lot of seafood restaurants, donburi restaurants. We were not sure which one to go, and we were debating a lot. We were hoping to go to the least touristy spot, which was hard because the whole place is full of tourists. We ultimately decided to eat at this small donburi shop called Donbe. We chose a spot that we thought was gonna serve the most fresh uni. This is what I got, the uni, ikura, and torodon. I mean, this is so colorful and looks extremely fresh. And I think that's what you need with these donburis. They don't have an amazing taste, in my opinion. You just really need to make sure that they are fresh. They also paid attention to their dashi soy sauce and the rice. It was a good first meal in Sapporo, although maybe not like mind-blowing. I think most of these shops at the Nijo market probably have all pretty standard and extremely fresh donburi. So we came to downtown Sapporo, make sure to enjoy all these attractions like the Sapporo TV Tower, the Odori Park, and the Snow Festival. For dinner, we came to the Toriton Kaiten Sushi. This is somewhat of a franchise within Sapporo, but by no means has a franchise quality. They actually serve really fresh and authentic sushi using seafood specifically from Hokkaido. There could be a pretty long wait, so just watch out for that. You could enjoy the sushi presented on the conveyor belt, but there's also this iPad that you can use to order stuff that you want. And I strongly recommend just ordering sushi that you specifically want, because on the conveyor belt, they will serve sort of generic sushi with fish not necessarily from Hokkaido. And you don't want to eat those visiting Sapporo. Usually above you there will be seasonal special menu with mostly Hokkaido ingredients, and I strongly recommend that you get those. They might be a little bit more pricey, but I think it's definitely worth getting those. We started off with the uni, which was so creamy. Then the nishin, which had a nice soft, slightly fatty texture, also from Hokkaido. The ama ebi, or the sweet shrimp in a maki style, which was amazingly plump and sweet with a nice oily texture. The hanasaki crab, also from Hokkaido, called the phantom crab, with a nice sweet taste and a chewy texture, although they didn't have that much of a richness like the sweet shrimp. Some authentic tonjiru with radish and some whitefish, much better than your standard miso soup in my opinion, with a nice little sweet aftertaste because of the radish. Then the ika, also from Hokkaido, thinly sliced with a very interesting chewy and slimy texture. The hotate, which is also from Hokkaido, one of the best scallop sushi I've ever had. So fresh and so soft, also with a little bit of sweetness. And the hirame, or the flounder, which had the nice clean taste. My favorite were the nishin or the herring, the sweet shrimp for sure, and the hotate. I'm sure there are a ton of great seafood restaurants in Sapporo, but this one I think is a must, especially as a tourist. A little outside of the downtown area, we came to Sapporo's most classic miso ramen called Junren. Open since 1964, this place has gone through many renovations to look as modern as it does. They sell the classic miso, the spicy miso, soy sauce, and shio ramen. They had an open kitchen and a countertop that could seat about 10 people, usually for the solo or couple customers, and there is an area with a bunch of tables for families. I got the classic miso ramen with chashu. There was a generous portion of chashu, which I always love. The soup looked really dense for two reasons. One from the tonkotsu and the second from the miso. There's some scallions and garlic toppings. The chashu had a decent amount of fat on one side and was pretty thick. The noodle, as you know, Sapporo style, is the wavy style with a clear texture. And it went really well with the soup, which I really loved. It was really thick. You have that little sour taste from the miso, a little sweet as well. Definitely a little salty. That makes everything very addictive. Next we came to the Sapporo Beer Museum, which was built on a former brewery. Here you can explore the historical course of the Sapporo Beer Company since its establishment in the 1860s. And on the first floor there is a very large beer hall where you can try different types of draft Sapporo beer. The history of the Sapporo Beer Company kind of goes hand in hand with the Meiji Restoration and the annexation of the Hokkaido island. Hokkaido was just beginning to be a part of the jurisdiction of the mainland government, and a very important strategic location as Japan was stepping up in its industrialism and its competition with some of the other East Asia countries like China and Russia. The local government branch in Hokkaido was called Kaitakshi, which was actively trying to incorporate Hokkaido into the mainland government. And they appointed a very forward-thinking businessman who learned the German-style brewery and wanted him to start this beer company, which ultimately led to its huge growth as a national brand. The star logo of the company actually comes from the symbol of that government branch, the Kaitakshi. And so it's really interesting that this brand really symbolizes Japan's openness to Western civilization and its efforts to annex Hokkaido. After a brief tour, I'm heading to the beer hall. The hall is open until only a certain hour, so make sure to confirm that hour before you go. This place was packed with tourists. You can select individual glass or a flight of 3. and there are employees who are gonna kindly walk you through. And you have a bunch of employees at the bar busily pouring their draft beer. These are the three beers I got. One of them is called Kaitakushi, which I referred to earlier. They basically have different levels of clarity and depth. I don't exactly recall the differences between the three, but always great to have some fresh draft beer and straight from the Sapporo Beer Company. Next, I came to the Hokkaido style lamb yakiniku called Daruma. This particular yakiniku style is apparently called Genghis Khan, named after the Mongolian emperor and the Mongols frequently eating lamb, and the legend that they sometimes used war helmets to grill their meat, and the grills that they use here have this unique convex shape, so it kind of comes out at the top, and there are these gutters on the periphery to collect all the fat, the juice, and the grill all the veggies, which are specifically onions and scallions. This is a perfect setting to enjoy some namabiru or whiskey highball. So you wait until the iron skillet is well heated and you start laying your meat. So we started with the lamb roast, which was a little fatty. I rarely do lamb yakiniku, but I was very happy to try this. Had that nice subtle lamb scent. The lamb smell was not bad at all for me. You're gonna have a lot of smoke here, and it's a pretty small, tight area. So they have these individual vents over each grill. The meat was perfectly fatty, and all that juice and fat rolls down to grill the onion and the scallion. And the kicker is this sweet soy sauce, very refreshing and has some sesame in it, and it goes perfectly with a nice bowl of white rice. Next we got the fillet or the tenderloin, which I thought was better. It has a little bit more of the unique lamb scent, and it's thicker, so I personally liked the overall texture of that better. I do recommend that you try both to get the fatty side and a little bit more lean cut. Overall, I mean, as with any yakiniku, it all comes down to the freshness of the meat, which I strongly thought it was. This place is just kind of fun to eat. It's very tight and crowded and loud. You can enjoy lots of alcohol. You're kind of squeezed among other customers, and you're gonna grill all of this yourself. Lamb is also a unique cut to do yakiniku with. So overall, there's no complexity with the meal itself, but just I think kind of fun and interesting to try some fresh lamb. One of my biggest pleasures when exploring Japan is to enjoy all of the local alcohol drinks from the convenience store, and Nikka being one of the major whiskey distilleries coming from Hokkaido. They had these local Nikka highball, and so I loved trying this. I always enjoy these drinks at the hotel with some authentic snacks like the yakitori. I think I got this from one of the department store food courts. You can also get these from any convenience store. And some daifuku, which is mochi wrapped in red bean paste, which is a little bit of an elderly taste, but I love mochi when I visit Asia. And this one seems to have been wrapped in kinako or the soybean flour, which makes it so much more savory. Next day for lunch, we came to this soup curry restaurant called Garaku. located in downtown Sapporo. If there's one non-seafood based dish that you should try in Sapporo, it has to be this dish. Every day there's such a long line that for lunch you have to be there sometime around 10 to 10:30, I believe, to make sure you get the shokken or the ticket to entry when the restaurant actually opens. And there was already a line for that ticket, so it speaks to how popular this place is. Inside, it's pretty spacious but also cozy at the basement with lots of decorations and very lively staff. Also, very sort of systematically run in terms of the menu. I got the sense it's very popular among women. So by soup curry, it refers to this Japanese dashi soup base with the Japanese curry that you know, with some spices and herbs that will remind you of the original Indian curry. So first of all, you're gonna choose your curry dish. They have chicken, sausage, sliced pork, and braised pork belly. Then important is to choose the spiciness from level 1 all the way up to level 40, but I think a normal human being will enjoy up to level 5. Then you choose your rice amount followed by toppings. So I got the braised pork, the buta kakni, which is their most popular menu, and already visually this is so appetizing. It's served in this large bowl, and I would say this is closer to a soup that tastes like curry than curry in terms of the texture. Then I got this side of rice which looks like saffron rice. There's also some black rice and some corn, and there's a nice vinegary touch to it and some melted cheese on top. This soup was truly mind-blowing. It was something I've never had before and something I still cannot forget. The richness of this soup is just unbelievable and so complex, and it feels like there's 10 different layers of taste in that soup. And apparently they use pork bone, 3 parts of chicken, Japanese dashi, caramelized onions, tomatoes, and 21 spices and herbs. So that explains why. On top of that, the spiciness is key and it amplifies the complex taste even more. I got a level 4 and that was just enough spicy but pretty spicy. And the veggies had a nice crisp texture as well. Before dinner, we quickly stopped by the Chitose Sake Museum. Chitose is a Hokkaido-born sake brewery from 1872. I find a strong resemblance in its history with the Sapporo Beer Company when Hokkaido was being actively colonized. So with their strong history, they won like 14 straight years of a sake competition in Japan and are known to use the underground water of the nearby Toyohira River with a ton of minerals, which obviously makes the sake much more complex. So we came here with a lot of excitement just because it was named a museum. I thought it'd be something similar to the Sapporo Beer Company Museum. As a quote-unquote museum, however, I was a bit underwhelmed when I arrived. It was essentially just a retail store for their own sake with some small corners of how they make the sake and sort of the traditional ways of enjoying sake in Hokkaido. I mean, in general, I feel that museums in Japan may not be the most convenient for foreigners who don't know Japanese, and it was essentially similar here. The employees there are not really interested in greeting new visitors if you're here to just kind of explore, because they have a huge retail section. You're really going to be paid attention if you're ready to buy some good quality bottles of sake. At least that was the impression I got. If you are a sake fanatic and want to bring a bottle back to your hotel to drink, or can figure out how to bring this on a flight, it might be worth, but otherwise it was a bit underwhelming for me. Next, we came to a really authentic seafood restaurant called Kaiyoutei. This is a really small, quiet restaurant at the basement, and I only saw local Japanese salarymen. They source their ingredients straight from Hakodate, and we enjoyed some fresh ama ebi, scallops, king crab, hairy crab with some refreshing sake. At the end, they made a nice dashi out of the hairy crab. This place is gonna be a little pricey, but I think definitely worth going for some legit Hokkaido seafood. For dinner, I came to a downtown ramen restaurant called Keyaki. There are only 8 to 10 seats at this countertop restaurant, and there was a fair amount of wait at around 8 p.m. This is one of your go-to ramen shops in the downtown area. They use miso in their soup, which is made with pork bone, chicken from the Niigata area, shiitake mushroom, and other veggies, boiled over 10 hours. Their soup has a little bit more clear and a bit more sweet taste than the Junren we saw earlier, mainly from the cabbage and the scallions. Their chashu is a bit thicker but only served in one slice. The noodle is also wavy. It was definitely a very satisfying meal, especially if you want to get some Sapporo ramen in the downtown area. Although if you had to pick one, I would pick the Junren. Sadly, we're approaching the end of our trip. However, the best thing about Sapporo is that there is so much to look forward to at the new Chitose Airport. First, I got some kamaboko, which I'm understanding as basically odeng with specifically whitefish. I got the sweet version and one spicy version, and they were intensely savory. There was a taste of fish. There was also a very chewy texture. It had a nice sweetness. I'm pretty sure they put lots of Japanese dashi in there. Yeah, it was definitely an amazing snack to begin with. Next, we got to try some fresh potato chips from the Kalbi stand. Kalbi, as you know, is probably one of the biggest producers of snacks and chips in Japan. I mean, this is pure heaven. You really can't resist these nicely sliced potato chips that are fresh fried. They were so fresh, so crispy, but not in a dry way. It's quite moist, and it was adequately salted. A really fun snack to indulge in. Probably the highlight of the new Chitose Airport is this ramen mall, where you can find at least 10 different Sapporo style ramen, including the Keyaki that we just saw. I'm always so excited whenever I visit ramen museums like this. The most popular of these, and the one that had the longest line, was this shrimp ramen, or Ebisoba, called Ichigen. That was the first store at the very entrance. Initially, it felt very exotic to me, and I was wondering if it was worth eating. But this place is definitely worth the wait. I mean, this is something I have never tried, and still to this day, I clearly remember its taste. So it's made with sweet shrimp, and so you have this really authentic, deep scent of the shrimp and a touch of sweetness. It is a bit more sophisticated than pork or chicken broth. Also, as the name suggests, the noodle is a straight noodle, kind of like soba, and not your typical Sapporo style. You can choose thin versus thick. I think the thin noodle really catches the soup very well, and I strongly recommend that you try this place. So that concludes my food trip. I had an amazing time here in Sapporo. I think this is a paradise for foodies and has very clear attractive points for tourists, and I will for sure be returning at some point. I hope you enjoyed my food recommendations. If there is any place I have not gone to, please let me know in the comments. Otherwise, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.